Welcome, everybody, to the United Lodge of Theosophists here in San Diego and all over the world. And welcome to and from the whole world here. So, our topic for today for the Aquarian series is the hymn to Vach, which is an excerpt from the Rig Veda. And we are privileged to have Catalina Isasa Cantor. And she right now is in Adyar right now, and she'll be speaking on the hymn to Vach. And she has thought through her own way to kind of begin the meeting and to get us to concentrate and so forth. So take it away, Catalina.
Okay, thank you. Namaste, dear all. Thank you for the presence today, and especially to Jonathan for this kind invitation. It's always a happy moment to me to wake up early one Sunday in a while and meet you all from the distance. It's very, 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 I feel very grateful for that. Before begin, I just want to ask you if you feel so to close your eyes or just stay in silence and take a deep breath or deep breath. Three in total. Let us center ourselves in the present moment, here, now, and let us bring our awareness to our heart. Feel and visualize how we are connected to each other heart to heart, beyond the distances. We are connected in united purpose and gratitude for this sharing experience. And let's just stay in that feeling of gratitude, connection, unity for some moments. And as Jonathan said, I'm going to share something about the hymn of Bach. I'll share the understanding I have gathered, inspired by Jonathan's encouragement to reflect on this beautiful and meaningful topic. I do so with humility. I'm aware that I have no special authority and with the sincere hope of listening to your insights at the end. It's a really beautiful topic. Uh, and I also want to share with you that whenever I am asked to give a talk, and while I was reading on Bach and I was preparing the topic, I was feeling that most probably what I am about to say, or big part of that, has sure been said before, maybe more beautifully or wisely. Yet, as the great Argentine writer Jorge Luis Borges observed once, meaning lies not in novelty but in reinterpretation by joining an ongoing dialogue across time in which many people have contributed. And as a master reminded us, truths are never owned. And the task of the speaker is simply to give them form for a moment and then pass them on. So, with that spirit, I'm going to share my personal understanding and insights on this topic. Okay, so today I want to speak about something that we all use every day and yet almost never pause to consider with reverence. I want to speak about speech itself, about words, sound, voice, and the mysterious power that lives within them. In the ancient Indian tradition, especially in the Vedas, speech was not seen as a simple human skill. It was understood as a cosmic force, a living principle of consciousness. Speech was called Vach, and Vach was worshipped as a goddess. Not a metaphor, but a real presence, the living word. One of the most striking hymns of the Rig Veda is the hymn to Vach, where speech itself revealed as living, conscious power, perceived only by those prepared to receive her, as the hymn itself declares. Many a man who sees does not see the world, and many a man who hears does not hear it. Yet for another Vach reveals herself like a radiant bride yielding to her lord. So here Vach is presented as sovereign and discerning, the queen, the gatherer of treasures, the knower who unveils herself only to those worthy of insight and devotion, while remaining hidden from others who hear and speak without understanding. But before continuing entering in its deeper layers, let us read the hymn in full in the beautiful translation rendered by Sri Raghavan Iyer and his wife Nandini. So maybe if Jonathan can help us with the reading, please. Will
who'd
it
be
be
really?
okay?
How about if we, Shobha, would you be up for that, or what do you think?
Okay.
She's so good at this reading.
Oh, great, great.
Sure, I can do this. I will.
Thank you,
Okay.
Shobha.
No problem. Hymn to Vach. When, O Lord of the Word, the wise established name giving, the first principle of language, their inmost excellence, pristine and pure, hidden deep within, was brought to light through love. When the wise created language with the mind, as winnowing ground barley with a sieve, friends acknowledged the essence of friendship. Upon their speech was impressed the mark of grace. With devotion they walked the path of the word, which they saw abiding within the seers. They drew it out, ordering it always. The word which the seven singers exalt. Many a man who sees does not see the word, and many a man who hears does not hear it. Yet, for another Vach reveals herself like a radiant bride, yielding to her Lord. Another man is apt to be uncaring, unmoved ever to act with daring, all tangled in vain imaginings. The word he hears bears no flower or fruit. He who forsakes a companion in knowledge lacks every avenue for sharing the word. In truth, what he hears to no avail. He cannot perceive the path of right action. To all companions are eyes and ears bestowed. Yet each man differs in the quickness of his mind. Some are like deep, refreshing lakes. Others, alas, like shallow pools. When men of the word, companions worship, refining in their hearts flashes of insight, some attain awareness of knowledge. Others wander, mouthing empty words. Those who move neither forward nor backward are not men of the world, nor refiners of essence. Poor craftsmen, mishandling the word, spinning frail threads of self-regard. All companions rejoice in their victorious friend, finding fulfillment at the journey's end. Nourishing them, he eases their pain, for he is ever ready to venture forth. While one man adds to the store of sacred verse, another sings hymns to banish confusion. The man of the word gives knowledge of what is, and another gives measure to worship.
So you really give it another completely deep meaning with your reading. Okay. I should say let's stop here because I am so taken to another place with Joba's voice that I don't know what to say after that. It's all bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, this hymn reflects on Vach as the living power of the word, the speech as sacred, revelatory, and inseparable from conscious itself. It's really deep and it's really rich, and of course, going in depth, verse by verse, word by word, will take a long time. And I think it's a study and something that it will be worth giving I mean as much time as necessary, reflecting upon it in different moments, reading in many moments of our life, because the more we read it, the more we go into it, the more we can decipher different meanings. It's very, very deep, very, very rich. So I humbly have to say that I will share some aspects of it, but I think many texts, many lectures, many books can be written on only this beautiful hymn because it entails like a universe itself. Okay, but let's continue with this sharing, and from its opening lines when it says, "When, O Lord of the world, the wise established." Uh, we are reminded that language is not accidental. The wise did not invent words, they recognized something already present. Naming, name giving, was an act of disclosure, a way of bringing to light what was pristine and pure, hidden deep within. All these are parts of the poem, pristine and pure, hidden deep within. That naming was the way of bringing that to light. And in the Vedic vision, to name rightly is to align with Rita, that is the cosmic order that sustains the universe. A speech then is a revelation. And this intuition echoes across cultures and centuries. We can see in the Genesis, naming expresses intimate knowledge of creation. In Greek thought, the logos orders reality also by naming. Much later, Martin Heidegger, for instance, will call language the house of being. House of being. So this hymn to Bach adds something essential. In the first verse, it says, it was brought to light through love. So revelation occurs through love. Vach discloses herself only where there is reverence and inward readiness. Love here is not a sentiment, but it is a mode of knowing, an openness through which truth can emerge. Whether as Sophia in biblical wisdom literature, as the incarnate word, or as intuited by many poets along the history of literature, the insight is the same. The word answers only when the speaker or that who pronounces it is inwardly transformed, and love takes a big role in that transformation. Hence, was brought to light through love. Hidden deep within was brought to light through love. In the Upanishads, this insight deepens and interiorizes. Reality is a goddess speaking outwardly and is the self itself. A speech, the self with capital letters. A speech becomes the means by which unity differentiates into names and forms. And this vision appears with clarity in the secret doctrine where HPB affirms that Vach is not symbolic but ontological, a creative principle of manifestation. It says, Brahma, the Logos, is shown dividing his body into two parts, male and female, and creating in the latter, who is Vach, Viraj, who is himself, or Brahma again. So words are vibration and force. And Blavatsky reminds us that the spoken word has a potency unknown to, unsuspected, and disbelieved in by the modern sages. Hence, to pronounce a word is to evoke a thought and make it present. A speech magnetizes, it summons and shapes. Space itself is akasha, alive with subtle forces. So speech rooted in truth and compassion attracts higher influence. A speech shaped by selfishness and instinct draws lower ones. However, when a speech is rooted in higher and is connected to this essence, it can really transform. It can really enlighten. So the humanity does not merely inhabit a word spoken by the divine, a world spoken by the divine. It continues that speaking every day in our daily life. We are part of, we are echoes of that speaking, whether knowingly or not. That's why it's important to be very aware of the power of language. And from this perspective, language itself belongs to an evolutionary arc. As humanity moves toward greater interior unity, the need for externalized speech may gradually diminish. Theosophy actually suggests that future communication may occur through direct transmission of thought, heart to heart, soul to soul. As the secret doctrine affirms, language have their cycles of birth, growth, decay, and death. And a future language will no longer rely on symbols that divide, but on consciousness that unites. Every moment being closer to this essence of Vach. So this is why the hymn to Vach says that many hear, but do not truly hear. Truth does not impose itself. Vach reveals herself like a radiant bride, only to one who is ready. And Blavatsky affirms in the Secret Doctrine, Vach is mystic speech, by whom occult knowledge and wisdom are communicated to man. the queen of gods. So across all these traditions, one pattern emerges. The word creates, the word conceals, the word reaches its limit and then returns disciplined and transparent, remembering the silence from which it was born. And we will go further in this like journey of the word and the silence as a very important part of it. But let's continue. The hymn puts a powerful image, the image of discernment. It says in the, see, oh no, sorry, here. It says in the second paragraph. It says, when the wise created language with the mind, as we know in ground barely with a sieve. So here is bringing this image of discernment, the importance of discernment. Just as a grain is separated from chaff, words must be sifted inwardly before they are spoken. A speech worthy of truth must be refined. Through this refinement, friends acknowledge the essence of friendship. So as you can see, I'm putting in pink the parts that are quoted from the hymn, so it's easy to differentiate. So here, an image comes to me, and it's the one of brotherhood, fraternity. Friends acknowledge the essence of friendship. And fraternity is not only declared, it arises naturally when people share a speech shaped by attentiveness and goodwill, by discernment. Upon such a speech is impressed the mark of grace. Then language can become healing, nourishing, unifying. Fraternity becomes then the natural resonance of the logos, of the word, of the speech. The word, the hymn insists, is not external. It says, they walked the path of the word, which they saw abiding within the seers. Wisdom already lives within consciousness. The word is ancient and yet ever renewed. It must be drawn out, ordered, shaped in harmony with reality, rather than distorted by ego. And yet, access to the word is not automatic. It says, the hymn says, many a man who sees does not see the word, and many a man who hears does not hear it. So sensory contact alone is insufficient. Discernment, as mentioned, is required. The capacity to recognize what truly matters. As the voice of the silence reminds us, the mind is the greatest layer of the real, so we need this discernment to really go and see what is the real, the eternal. Only when this inner readiness awakens, Vach reveals herself like a radiant bride yielding to her Lord. The hymn returns towards also misuse of language. In theosophical terms, this points to what we may call noetic ethics, the importance of the ethics of knowing. When the poem speaks of words that bear no flower or fruit, it reminds us that knowledge is never meant to remain sterile. Speech is not neutral, it carries responsibility. If our words do not transform us or move to right action, they remain empty. No matter how beautiful they may sound, they remain empty when there is not this essence of the noetic action to guide them. And the warning about being tangled in vain imaginings, and about the one who forsakes a companion in knowledge, goes even further. It reminds us that understanding must be grounded, shared, and lived, especially. True knowing grows through dialogue and relationship, and it is finally tested by whether it bears fruit in life. This is the heart of noetic ethics. To know truly is to speak responsibly, to listen with others, and to act rightly. The hymn also reminds us that not all minds have the same depth. Some are like deep, refreshing lakes, others like shallow pools. And this is a recognition. With wisdom deepens. Sorry. Oh. This is a recognition. Wisdom depends on inner space and the capacity to the capacity to receive meaning, to let it mature and allow it to shape our lives. As the voice of the silence reminds us, the self of matter and the self of spirit can never meet. Even in moments of prayer or study, some carry insight inwardly, while others merely wander mounting empty words, as the hymn says. So it is not about outer participation, it is about inner work. Is that what allows the understanding to deepen, to go into the real essence and meaning? And when inner work is absent, or when this decision of taking up the self transformation is absent, then the word itself can be misused. The real power of the word can be misused. And in this universe in which we live in, whose natural condition is movement and transformation, as the secret doctrine reminds us, there is no rest or cessation in nature. Stagnations distort meaning also. So those who neither grow nor refine their understanding become, as the hymn says, poor craftsmen, mishandling the word, spinning frail threads of self-regard. Because speech shaped by ego cannot endure and can be dangerous once we acknowledge the power that it has. True speech, therefore, requires humility and continual growth because, as we said, the natural condition of our universe is movement, is transformation, is growing. So, in order to be able to really grasp that essence of the true speech, we require humility and a disposition to continual growth, allowing understanding to evolve and the word to remain living and effective, a living thing in our lives or in lives. And the hymn ends generously. When one person reaches clarity, all companions rejoice in their victorious friend. Maybe more than generously, it ends with hope. This gives us a lot of hope, maybe. Because true mastery of the word is never private. It naturally serves others. It eases confusion, nourishes understanding, and returns again and again to be of use. This reflects the divine plan itself, in which no effort stands alone. Everything is connected. All companions rejoice in their victorious friend because what is realized in one place quietly supports life everywhere. So what we do in every moment of our life, it's of very high importance, no matter how small it is, because it will reflect everywhere. It will support life everywhere. And ultimately, all companions rejoice in the victorious friend. The closing verses of the hymn affirm a beautiful diversity of roles as well. One preserves a sacred verse, another dispels confusion, another teaches what is, another gives measure to worship. No single voice is lost. The world remains living only through coordinated difference, through many functions working together. This also makes me think in the unity in diversity, how every voice matters, how everything matters, how every one of us matters, and our own process of self transformation is vital for the whole. In this way, the hymn reminds us of a deep truth of interconnectedness. What each of us understands, refines, and offers becomes part of a larger harmony, shaping the whole. Okay, so let's continue saying that the Vedic sages taught that speech exists on four levels, ranging from the deepest silence of consciousness to the words that we actually speak. These four levels, Paravak, Pashyanti Vach, excuse my pronunciation, Madhyama Vach, and Bakari Vach, do not describe different kinds of language so much as different depths of awareness from which language arises. In this sense, speech is not uniform. Words spoken from surface awareness are fundamentally different from words arising from deeper perception. So at the higher, I put this like in this like a synthesis here. So at the highest level is Paravak, that is called the supreme speech. And here speech is indistinguishable from pure consciousness itself. It is beyond sound, beyond thought, beyond subject and object. The secret doctrine will say that before the Logos there was the silence. The Logos is born of that silence and returns into it. That will be a quote to illustrate this level of the supreme speech before manifestation. Nothing can be said of this level because, as Blavatsky also affirms, the absolute can have no attributes. It is neither being or not non-being, but both. It is beyond thought and speech. So it's a very higher level. Silence here is not absence, but fullness, the womb of meaning. Paravak is unity before differentiation, awareness before articulation, being before expression. Then from para arises Pashyanti Vak, which is the seeing speech, where meaning appears as a single undivided intuition, knowing before words or distinctions. Truth is grasped as a whole rather than analyzed. And the secret doctrine notes that the eternal idea, though imperceptible, was ever present in the infinite mind. Then from Pashyanti Vak emerged Madhyama Vak, the inner language of thought, where intuition takes conceptual form. Meaning unfolds sequentially through reflection and analysis. Blavatsky writes, thought is the first form of the manifested logos. Finally, a speech appears as Vach. The spoken word. Sound entering the shared world of action. Yet this only the outermost layer of a deeper process. Here we will say sound is the first manifestation of the manifested logo, and this is the word, spoken word, the level of the spoken words. So, among all these, I thought that Brahma Vach stands between para and pasyanti as the first impulse of expression, the word as creative intention. Neither thought nor sound, it is the bridge where unity begins to unfold into meaning without losing its oneness. So seen in this light, a speech follows a twofold movement. It descends from para into vaika in expression, and it ascends from there toward para in spiritual practice. Through mantra, to meditation, to discipline, to silence, to service. Wisdom always moves this way, from source into form, like when the manifestation begins, and then from form back to source. So it's like tracing the entire cycle of evolution. Blavatsky affirms this ancient doctrine when she writes, all writers said that Vach is of four kinds. Vaikari Vach is what we utter. The Logos itself is the Pasyanti form, and Parabrahman is the para form or aspect of that Vach. These four levels of speech correspond to levels of consciousness within the human being as well. Blavatsky distinguishes between the higher and lower manas, the noetic and the psychic. A speech arising only from Vaikan reflects the lower mind and reinforces separateness, the lower part. A speech that is rooted in para reflects noetic consciousness and serves unity and truth. Then, choice in a speech is not a preference, but is an alignment to that higher. And this alignment is the ethical axis of language itself. Once more, this makes us think in the importance of how we speak, what we speak, and even from the thought itself, because we know that there are these four levels. So from the thought itself, everything begins to generate. The Vedas teach that speech descends from silence into sound, and that spiritual discipline reverses this movement, lifting sound back into silence, as we were mentioning, this cycle of the manifestation, coming down, manifesting, and then joining the source back. This is why the mantra works, not by superstition, but because we know when we pronunciate a mantra, we are aware of this power. And we are aware that the sound reconnects speech with its inner source. There is a hidden power there. The task is to reintegrate the language with its depth, to let the lower level, the Vaikari, be informed by the Madhyama, illuminated by Pasyanti and rooted in Para. Then This power of language lies not in louder or faster words, but in deeper listening and a speech that remembers its origin in silence. The secret doctrine shows that speech herself depends on silence. It says, the noiseless is superior to the noisy. This allegory is at the root of the occult law which describes silence upon the knowledge of certain secret and invisible things perceptible only to the spiritual mind. Again, the discernment plays a role here. The meaning is clear. Silence comes before sound. True speech arises from stillness and must return to it. And this is not just a metaphor, but an occult law of consciousness. This same teaching appears in the voice of the silence, where the aspirant is reminded that true hearing does not belong to the outer ear. Words alone do not reveal truth. The outer voice and restless thought must first be stilled. Silence here is not absence, but is the condition of a higher perception accompanied by the discernment that the hymn to Bach mentions in many of its parts. Sorry. This is why the hymn to Bach says that many hear but do not truly hear. The word does not impose itself, it reveals itself only to the one who is ready. Again, like a radiant bride yielding to her beloved. Silence is not opposed to speech, it is the source of the true speech. From this perspective, words do not merely describe reality, they participate in creating it. Then, as we mentioned at the beginning, to name is not to label, but to draw something out of the unspoken into form. And HPB makes this explicit when she identifies speech itself as the feminine logos. She says, Vach, the daughter and the female portion of Brahma, is the female logos, so to speak, the goddess of the active forces in nature, the word, voice or sound, and speech. Every spoken word thus participates, knowingly or not, in this primordial act of creation. And this creative power of Bach is related to Sarasvati, the goddess of wisdom and sacred learning. Sarasvati, a later form of aspect of Vach, the goddess also of secret learning or esoteric wisdom. And in this sense, Sarasvati gathers into herself all the qualities attributed to Vach in the hymn. She is praised as the one who awakens consciousness to right thinking, who pours a great fluid of insight into the mind, who illuminates all the thoughts. She is not merely the word we speak, but the clarity that makes a speech truthful. In that, a deep and luminous reflection on these dimensions appears in a beautiful, beautiful text by Helen Balbert, the name Sarasvati, from which I'm going to paraphrase the following images. She says that each year across India, students place their books and pens at the feet of Sarasvati's image. They do not study, they do not write, they simply open themselves. And she says that this is like this record. I see this symbolic behavior that she reminds us in her article. Remembers this recognition that knowledge flows when the mind becomes perceptive and when it becomes silent. So that day, nobody writes, nobody speaks, they just are in silence. And this echoes a little bit what we were talking about the silence, the importance of silence. Also, she says, Helen Balvor says that Sarasvati is said to ride upon a swan, that is the symbol of discernment. She holds a book, a musical instrument, a rosary, and a cup. These are not ornaments. They tell us that learning, art, rhythm, repetition, and contemplation belong together. Her very name means she who flows. She is the flow of consciousness becoming sound, becoming meaning. The power of Vach came to be known as Sarasvati, the goddess of wisdom and sacred learning. And Blavatsky says that Sarasvati, a later form of our aspect of Vach, of the goddess also of sacred learning, of esoteric wisdom. So I was telling that there is a beautiful text by Helen Barsworth that is called Sarasvati. Uh, Sarasvati gathers into herself all the qualities attributed to Vach in the hymn, and she's praised in the Vedas as the one who awakens consciousness to right thinking, who pours a great flood of insight into the mind, who illuminates all thoughts. She's not merely the word we speak, but the clarity that makes the speech truthful. And in her text, Helen Valvors have beautiful images, which I'm going to paraphrase some of them. She, for instance, begin her text saying that each year across India, the students place their books and the pens at the feet of Sarasvati's image. They do not study, they do not write, they simply open themselves to receive the blessing of Sarasvati. And this is that recognition that knowledge flows when the mind becomes receptive. So they stop, they go in this attitude of silence that we were mentioning before, and the importance of becoming silent and be receptive to that blessing of Sarasvati. She also is said to be to ride upon a swan, which is the symbol of discernment. We were discussing that Bach has a lot of cues related to discernment. And she holds a book, a vina, that is the musical instrument that you can see on the screen, a rosary, and a cup. And these are, as everything in this representation is not just an ornament, it's a symbol that tells us that learning, the art, the rhythm, the repetition, and the contemplation belong together and are part of this whole possibility of Bach. Her very name, the Sarasvati, means she who flows. She is the flow of consciousness that becomes sound, that becomes meaning, that becomes form. And in the early Vedic times, Sarasvati was also a real river, celebrated for her purifying and fertilizing power. And there is a part in which Blavatsky in the Secret Doctrine observes that the outer river vanished, but the inner river grew stronger. So it's indeed the symbol of the inner nourishment, the inner aspect that this all carries within. And the physical river disappeared beneath the sands. Her spiritual meaning deepened. And that's how she became known as the mother of the Vedas, the inspirer of the seers. Just as water gives life to the body, this speech in this symbolism gives life to the spirit. It's creative. The outer river vanished, the inner river grew stronger. Mead expresses this through the Sarasvati, history expresses this through by saying that Sarasvati springs from the mouth of Brahma, dancing upon his tongue. It's a very beautiful image. And this shows us that creation begins when intelligence finds the expression. And that's why she has all this instrument, the rosary, the cup, the book, etc. Because then The creation begins when this intelligence, this Brahma, finds the expression through it. Without her, without this expression, ideas remain unmanifest. With her, thought becomes world. Again and again, the teaching returns. Mind and speech are inseparable. Yet noiseless speech, the inner word, is more powerful than spoken sound. Outer words matter, but inner alignment matters even more. This is why mantra, music, poetry, all those science and invention all fall under Sarasvati's domain. Human beings experience this possibility where through speech, art, learning, we attempt to bind ourselves back to meaning. Language and self awareness arise together. And this places responsibility upon us. We have reached a point in human evolution where rules are no longer sufficient. Self realization has become a duty, and a life that does not attempt to align thought, word, and action with the deeper flow of truth is a wasted life. The student um, that down his books, the poet that waits before a blank page, the scientist standing at the edge of the unknown, all are performing the same inner act represented by Sarasvati. They are emptying themselves, waiting, making a space. One grasping thought, one trace of self importance, and the flow disappears. So when one trace of this of self importance, and this flow disappears because when the lower comes into the play, this inner alignment just loses its own power. Only humility, patience, and courage allow the world to descend. That's also another meaning of this putting the books of the students uh, at the feet of Sarasvati. It's an act of humility, of patience, and courage so that the word, the blessing, descends to them. Sarasvati is therefore called the impeller to right mentalizing. She awakens the great flood. She awakens the great flood in consciousness. The text says that she alone can lead beings to liberation because she fills them with the divine word until they become one with it. She embodies the unfolding of the cosmos itself, from silent potential through subtle vibration into light, sound, and form. And now I would like to end where the Vedas themselves end, not with explanation, but with invocation, as Helen Balbour does in her inspired address. So this is with these four lines that are in pink and in pink color on the screen. Helen Balbour ends her beautiful text on Sarasvati. She says, "O bright harbinger of awakening, lay thy word upon my tongue, lay thy shruti flood my mind, that my speech be heaven won." And let us finish this reflection with a simple reminder, offered not as a conclusion but as an invitation, not to claim the world as our own, but to turn toward Vach herself, standing in reverent listening until silence gives permission. When intention is purified in truth, and speech arises as a gift, not an assertion, and it arises through us rather from us. Through us rather from us. So The ego is not there. We are just an instrument to allow that speech to manifest through us. And that's what I wanted to share with you. I'm sorry for all the interruptions, and thank you for your patient listening. And thank you.
Well, we are so grateful. And your presentation was actually an embodiment of one of your ideas that you said that Vach is something, an ontological truth, but it comes through speech, and that there's all these different levels. And it's the unfoldment of being. So that was the way your presentation was. And really very intrigued by how you did that, where you said it's the path of unfolding, but through service, it's the path of return. So that was an incredible insight, I thought. And also that Saraswati has so much to do with beauty and the aesthetic, the spiritual aesthetic, meaning aesthetics like beauty. And so all of your slides were such a reflection of beauty and proportion and balance. So it seems like that was actually part of it, those beautiful slides. So I thank you very, very much. And if anyone from the audience has a comment or a question or anything that they would like to share or ask our speaker to follow up on a point that she made, then now is your time. Shobha.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Catalina. That was so inspiring. In fact, I don't even want to talk now because you made speech so powerful and sacred. Thank you for that beautiful exposition. I really don't have a question. I just wanted to comment on the beauty of your lecture. Thank you.
Thinking of what Jonathan was saying about the beauty of Saraswati, this is also one characteristic of the language. I mean, this language that should be beautiful. I mean, it's like that let's always be careful that what we say is true, beautiful. It has beauty because it kind of take us to that higher level of connection. So beauty is a very important element in the speech, in the language, in the way we get in relationship with the world and with each other, in thought, of course. Thank you for that also.
No, Catalina, I had a question for you. Have you noticed, what is your observation regarding translation as a professional translator to several languages that you can do, which is another marvel, with relation to the delivery of the word as it unfolds?
So the relation to the delivery, sorry, I didn't get the last part of your statement.
Do you find that this understanding of the different levels of sound and language in the word would help you unlock the ability to translate from one language to the other, especially in relation to sacred writings and sacred speech?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, I mean, one of the most difficult things to translate, in fact, are like whether sacred texts or poetry, which also has a very sacred dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, like a translation in some ways, a kind of a rewriting of text. Always, it's impossible to be completely faithful to the original. I mean, because each language has its own way of expression, It's
Yes.
really a very difficult task, especially in this. And of course, as you say, I absolutely agree that the translator, in order to be able to convey the essence of what is being written, needs not only a very wide knowledge of both the languages, of the terms used, but especially when it is about sacred texts, I think the translator has to be really a spiritual practitioner in order to really grasp and convey the meaning that is expressed. Otherwise, it may fall only in like a intellectual translation. I mean, we can see different levels and nuances of translations of sacred texts. Some of them are very accurate, very academic, with a lot of explanation, footnotes, etc. But when you read them, you feel an emptiness because there is a beautiful form. There is a lot of um, exact things. I mean, it's a very good job, obviously, because it entails a lot of effort from and knowledge of language, but it stays in the superficial level. It doesn't go to the deeper layers of what the text really resonates. It's like I guess the act of translating a sacred text or a poem is an act of devotion itself. And you have to become one with that text as a translator and reflect upon it and go to the different layers and finally try to express the most similar way in the language that you are translated the text to. So yeah, I guess it's important to have to be aware of the different layers of the word, how the word acts in different levels, because that will reflect on the translation. And if the translation has this awareness and the spiritual practice, or if it is about poetry, also this, in the case of poetry, I will say this sensitivity, this inclination to beauty, to deepness, it's important. Yes, absolutely.
It seems so. Now we have a question from a person who speaks in the language of light, and he happens to be a photographer. David?
No.
I don't know how much light I'll shed, but I was wondering, kind of in relation to the second object, if you'd ever made any, excuse me, correlations with the book of John in the Bible, because that, jumped out at me. The idea in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. It says there, and the Word was God. And then later on, it speaks of Jesus as the Word made flesh, the incarnation of a high being. I just wondered if, with all that you brought out tonight, if you think there's a lot going on there also.
I haven't thought about that, but clearly, I mean, this creative power of language is there. At the beginning was the word. I mean, the sound was the creative power, and many traditions show us that. And when and it also makes me think of these four levels of Bach that we were speaking about, because in the beginning it's this and slowly the flesh is created, so it kind of touches the different levels, like the last until the last level, that is the spoken word, that will be the equivalent to the flesh, I would say. I mean, it brings this to my mind, these four layers of Bach that we were speaking about, and that I think that is in reality the process of manifestation. It shows how the word, the sound, is the origin, and how it unfolds and manifests until it comes back. So these layers, in reality, we can make this parallel with the manifestation itself, as it is expressed in the secret doctrine, as Blavatsky explains it to be. So I guess it's just they are the different traditions express it in different ways, and this is the way the Christian tradition express this unfolding through the sound. I will see it like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they also confirm each other in a way. I think that's very powerful. Yeah. Yeah.
It seems that there's an organic and natural way in which our speech is a recapitulation of the unfoldment of the cosmos and of the pilgrimage of the monad, where you have the unfolding and going out the path of Pavriti, I think. Shobha can help me pronounce it properly. And then the return path of Nivriti. Yeah. Could you pronounce it better, Shobha, please?
You're doing a fine job,
Good enough.
Jonathan. You're doing a great job.
Cut the insecurity. Just go with it. Okay. All right. Anyway, that it makes it so that it seems like it would revolutionize our society if we knew how important speech was and how integrated it is with life itself and the whole journey of life. Don't you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. It will be especially nowadays that we have so many, like for instance, the music. I mean, we see the music that is produced nowadays, that is this power of sound with these lyrics that are also the power of a speech. And if we only knew how powerful that can be and how these kind of lower vibrations are not helping at all the betterment of our world, it will be really great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you. And that's why at least from our place, what we can do with that awareness is try to put it into practice in our daily life, in our daily conversations, relationships, also being not only very careful what we uh, pronounce, what we put out from our beings with the thought. Of course, we don't need even to speak because the power of thought is there and is very, very, very impactful. But also to nourish ourselves with this kind of higher music, literature, readings, etc. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, because nowadays everybody's talking about nourishment of the body. People are getting more and more aware of that, right? And more scientific about it, more thoughtful about it, more caring about it, and so forth. But can you imagine if we took it to the next level, as they say, and as you said, the nourishment that can be provided in theosophical meetings, for example, or the nourishment that can be provided by reading poetry and literature, great literature, or the nourishment that can be found in the secret doctrine, or any theosophical writer, or any writer, as David was saying about the second object, any kind of nourishment from any kind of tradition is so important.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. From art also. I mean, what kind of art we are presenting, what kind of music, what kind of even visual arts. I mean, there are now so many streams that really treat art in a not very sacred way. And all that is contributing. Yeah, absolutely.
I had a question about you were talking about the silence of receptivity and waiting. I guess like the art of waiting. The art of waiting in silence until one is granted the permission from the silence to then express. Did you say anything like that, or I thought you said something like that, where there's such thing as waiting in the silence until the silence gives permission to speak or to express oneself.
Oh, I don't know if I say it so beautiful as you are saying it, but you have said it all. Yeah. Actually, yeah. I mean, and this is one of the powerful images that Ellen takes brought when she says that the students put the books and everything, and that day nobody studies, nobody speaks, they just are there. It's like a metaphor of this waiting. But you put it very beautifully. Yeah, absolutely.
That was
Yeah.
yeah, it was a beautiful thing. Shobha?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, we would do it every year on, it's called Vijayadashami. That's the 10th day, usually comes in October, and that's the day dedicated to Saraswati. So we were very happy because we didn't have to study that day. So all our books, all our books, I would bring all the subjects that were difficult for me and put it there. And I think what a wonderful thought behind it of giving time for it to almost like marinate, right? And wait for the right approach to it. You know, this whole subject of Vach brings up the point of waiting before you speak. What you utter is so important. And, you know, when we do our daily reflection every day, we realize, I wish I hadn't said that. You know, I wish I had put it in a different way. So, this whole thing of self reflection and re evaluating and waiting. Think before you speak, you know, it's such a trite expression, but it's such a powerful one, you know, of what comes out of this mouth, right? What goes in isn't as important as what comes out, right? Yeah, so we did that every year, and we loved that day for that reason.
This also makes me think on how important is the meditation, because it's this moment of silence, of pausing. I mean, there are like different modalities, if one can say. On one side is daily meditation, that is this moment of silence, of pausing, that we can try to reproduce throughout our day in the action of being aware here and now. There is a constant state of meditation, and when we are in that state, we can pause, think, and see if it is necessary at all to speak or maybe not. But also there is this other aspect of, like at the end, like the Pythagorean suggested, to make this final review of our day at the end of the day, which is also a moment of pause and silent. Maybe the meditation is more receptive because we kind of empty ourselves to receive something, but in this end of the day is a more active expression, because we are intentionally going through all our actions, thoughts, words, etc., that we pronunciated during the day or that we did during our day. And it is important also to keep this, as Shoga was saying, this awareness of when do we need, because we normally, Shoga was saying, no, we normally say, oh, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have said it. And if we do this on a daily basis, it is a very practical thing. We will end up slowly being more aware of not saying this, not doing that. Instead of regretting it after, we examine our day, and with the purpose, we go to sleep with the purpose of the next day, try to do it less than the previous day. And then in the morning, we do our meditation, still carrying this kind of purpose, and we pause and just listen. I think the power of meditation is incredible, and the power of complete and constant awareness moment to moment, because these are the moments of silence that we have in our day. And it's a way that we can feel like in kind of a constant silence if we are here observing, because when we are like listening to another person, our mind goes all the time, oh, I'm going to say this, I'm going to answer that, I'm going to we are not in silence. Even if we are not pronouncing a single word, we are not in silence. So this attentiveness every moment is a way of constant silence in the middle of our quotidianity. Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. And above all, Catalina, thank you for just absolutely brilliant presentation. What you said about Shoba when she read the hymn to Vach and you were just kind of lost in reverie, that's a way I think we all were after your presentation. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And it's always nice to see you. Thanks.
Okay. Take care, everybody.